2023 was an incredible year for Lightroom and its updates, and here are 5 new tools that I think every car photographer should know when they're editing their photos. Now, the first tool that we are going to talk about is called Point Color. Now, this tool kind of works alongside of the color mixer, and you can find it here where the color mixer is, and you just have to go over to this tab here, and then you can get this pointer, and then you can start picking your point color. So the difference between the two is the point mixer is going to kind of take everything out. So I'm seeing a ton of warmth and yellow on this Porsche. So I actually would want to technically remove some of those yellows or remove some of those oranges. But what it does is it removes it from the whole image. So what's so cool about Point Color and how I'm going to teach you how I use this tool is actually inside of the masking features. Now, if you guys aren't using masks yet, then I highly recommend you do. I'm sure you're seeing it all over Instagram in the automotive photography space with people showing you how they're using their masks. It's pretty essential to understand how to use these masking tools. So I'm going to show you some of my favorite ways to use them in this tutorial. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go up to our masking tool here. We're going to select the subject and let AI do its trick. There you go, it has captured that pretty well. But I'm gonna come into the Point Color tool here. So this is a white Porsche, and I'd love to get this white Porsche back to its color. So what I'm gonna do is take that Point Color, I'm gonna tap that color there, and then we're just gonna come down to the saturation shift, and we're gonna just desaturate this because we want that white Porsche just to go right back to its color. What's really cool about Point Color is you don't just get to use it one time. You can actually take this and do this as many times as you need to, which I can show you guys in another photo as well, how impactful this can be. So now that we've got the Porsche back to white, we're actually gonna subtract what we've done from the wheels, because you can see those beautiful wheels there are also that yellowy gold color. So you can obviously do this with a brush, so we can then brush and remove that to get those yellow wheels back, or you can also go subtract and use like a radial gradient or something and just kind of drag that over the wheel until you get the color back. And then what I love to do is actually invert this mask, so we can duplicate it and invert it using these little 3 buttons here. And now we're going to be controlling the entire background. So what we can do here is I actually want to warm it up, and I wanted to make it feel more like it was sunset there. So we can just really easily do that. You guys can fiddle with that, but that's one tool. The Point Color tool is absolutely crazy cool to use because you can use it inside of any mask as well as use it over the whole image, and you have so much control over how you change the colors of things. So I'll show you guys, because I've got a red Porsche GT3 RS we can edit as well, and I'll show you how powerful that tool is. All right, so here's our next photo, and I made one absolutely massive mistake when I was doing this photo shoot that you guys can learn from. And if I pull up my info here, if you guys look up in the settings here, you can see that I shot this photo at a shutter speed of 3200, an aperture of 7.1, and an ISO of 4000. This is absolutely the wrong settings. You can see that it's perfectly daylight out. So what I recommend is the aperture is okay because we have multiple cars in the photo, but my ISO needs to be way down, probably at 100, and then use my shutter speed to adjust. But that leads me to an incredible tool that we now got in Lightroom, which I'm sure you guys have seen already, but it is the denoise tool. So what this does is it actually will take the entire image and enhance it with AI, bringing all that crappy noise out of the image. As you guys can see here, there is so much noise from the ISO in this photo, but with this denoise feature, I can show you what it looks like. It is absolutely crazy how well this does. Whereas previously we had to kind of fiddle with some of the denoise functions. Now AI does it for us. And the cool thing is it'll create a whole nother image. I'd say the only con to this tool is it actually makes that file size pretty massive. So make sure if you're doing this on a lot of your photos that you check your hard drive space, because these photos might be taking up a lot of that hard drive space. It also takes a long time. As you can see, it's still kind of running that process there. Now, if you have denoised it, another thing I love to do is in my sharpening tool there, we can actually mask out some of the details. That will also help with reducing some of the noise that's being actually sharpened in your image. So hold Option, drag this masking tool up, and you can see that it's just going to sharpen the edges or the lines of that car. So that's a little extra tip there for you. Now, as I promised, let's just go and do a quick point color change on this car. We'll select our subject. Does a really good job considering there's 3 subjects. And then we will add the point color here. So we're just gonna grab this red, and we're actually just gonna make this a completely different color. So you can see I can drag this over, click that again. We can make this car any paint to sample Porsche that we want, which is kind of crazy. You can even expand the range on it. As you can see, it's not kind of grabbing all of it, so you can just adjust how much of the colors it's grabbing there, how much of the saturation you want. The next tool is also used inside of a mask, and when they introduced this, it just kind of blew my mind because we needed this for so long. So again, we're just gonna hit our subject here, and we're actually gonna start to use a curve inside of this tool. So previously what I used to do is I used to just adjust the exposure up here, then maybe add some contrast, but it was harder to get some finer details. But what I'm actually gonna do is I want this car to stand out of the image. Now the next tool will really help with that, but this one, we're just gonna take a point on the curve there, and we're just gonna bring that up to make the highlights kind of pop on this car. I'm gonna do that also in the mid-tones to really make the car stand out, but this is where it gets great, is you don't want the car to stand out unnaturally, like it's pulled out of the image fake. You want it to look like it's naturally in that image and that it's standing out as it should, but we're using clever, tricky editing. So then I'm gonna take a point on the bottom and we're gonna make the shadows look like it still matches the rest of the photo. And then if we pull up this mask and we just see what it's doing here, you can see that that is a massive difference, and you can play around with this. You can adjust that mask how you want using this slider here. So you can kind of dial that into taste. If you've taken it too far, you can push it too far. But there you go. That's a great way to kind of make your car stand out using the curves tool. In fact, I've made it a preset in my toolkit so that when you click on car or subject or car curve down here, it'll add a curve to your car or to your subject. If you want to check the toolkit out, this one is part of V2. You can check that out and I'll leave a coupon code here for you guys. So here we have a picture of a Huracan. Again, my settings are wildly incorrect, so make sure that you guys have your settings done correctly. Learn from my mistakes. What we're going to do here is we're going to hit M on the keyboard. This is going to bring up our graduated filter. We're going to start at the bottom of the photo, start dragging up, then hold Shift. Shift will straighten that mask for you. You can see if I go sideways and I hold Shift, it'll straighten it out for me. So this way you got a perfectly straight graduated filter every time. All you're gonna do here is just drop that exposure down. So all this is doing essentially is taking away light. Our eyes are drawn to light. So we're removing light from this part of the image that doesn't really need any attention at all and drawing our eyes towards the car. Now, one thing I highly recommend you do in any automotive photography when you're putting these graduated filters on is come up, hit the subtract button, hit select, and then this will remove now your car from the darkening. So any lightening you've done to your car or brightening up of that image, you won't darken it if you say drag your radial gradient over that car. It won't make any impact on it because we've subtracted that car from this darkening mask. It will no longer be impacted by it. So then if you wanted to go and select that car, for example, I mean, it did a pretty poor job, unfortunately, this time, but you can then make that car pop using some of the curves here like we learned in our last one. Now, using one of the tools we've already learned again, one thing I would do here is do a linear gradient, drag it over the entire image here. We're going to subtract our subject in our car, but then I'm also going to go and use that point color tool because I want to remove all this kind of gross orange from the road. And what we're going to do in our final tip is kind of add that style, the personalized styles that can make you kind of stand apart from any other photographer in a way that they'll be like, oh, that's so-and-so's photo. So that's what our last tool is, and by subtracting some of these gross colors from the road or from areas of our photo, it enables us the ability to add our custom colors or look that we want for this specific grade. So that brings me into the final tool, which is color grading. Now, color grading is the thing that I use personally to differentiate my photos from maybe someone else's. And I use a very specific color combination that I use based on kind of cinema, I guess, and it's probably not unique just to me. I'm sure a lot of people use this, but you can kind of start to dial in your own colors. So that's why I personally like a slightly desaturated look. And then I can go down into my color grading tool, and in my shadows, I add a hue of 220 and a saturation of 10. What that does is it puts a little bit of the blue color here. You can see this is the blue color it's picking there. In my midtones, I don't change any of the colors, but I do pop the luminance by about 20 or so. This helps the car pop out again because it tends to land in the mid-tones area. And then in the highlights, I add a hue of 35, a saturation of 10. Now you can push these saturation limits kind of as far as you want. So if you wanted this to be a bit warmer, you can kind of push the warmth of using that saturation. I'm not going to do that. The way I tend to do it is by pushing the balance left or right. So if I want a cooler image, I'm still going to have a bit of the 35 saturation 16 in it, but I'm pushing the balance more towards the cool side, the shadows side, or you can move it up towards the warm side, and then that's going to push all the color temps up towards the 35. So this is how I personally differentiate my photos from maybe some others, is having those tones. And this also helps when you post to Instagram, that you kind of have this uniformed look of colors across the entire palette of your Instagram. So this is a great way to get that unique look or custom look or unified look on Instagram or wherever you're posting your photos. A fun thing you can do also is save all these as a preset. So if you come up into your presets here, you hit the plus button, create preset, check none, and then you can come up and hit color grading. What this will do is if you save this into a preset, then you don't have to do all those selections every time. You can actually, I'll cancel it here, but you can actually come down to where you have saved yours, and I have mine saved here in the color section as either balanced, so that's 50-50, or pushing it towards the cool side, or pushing it towards the warm side. So that way I don't have to go and put all those buttons in every time. It's already set as a preset. Again, these are in my toolkit, but I highly recommend you kind of create your own presets as you start building your favorite looks. So those are the 5 tools, but one little bonus tool I'm gonna give you guys here that I haven't actually taken advantage of too much, but I've been trying to do now this year in 2024, is starting to sync edits across the edits. So instead of copying and pasting, so if we have this photo selected that we wanna sync across, we can come across to all these photos and this little button here called sync, we can hit that, and I actually don't wanna sync everything. So I'm gonna hit check none, and I wanna just select the color grading, synchronize that across all the photos. So then as you can see, when we go across all these, they're gonna have all the color grading synced. So you can do this with your masks, with your edits. If you're working within a same set of photos, this would be a great way to get your photos kind of to a basic standard look, so you don't have to adjust this panel every single time. These are the tools that I love to use in my car photography, and I hope that you learned something from this. If you guys want to check out my presets, they are built specifically for automotive photographers, because the thing is, you're shooting beautiful cars with reds and blues and yellows, and oftentimes presets kind of take all those colors away. So I've built presets here that are stackable, so you can actually custom build your presets. Instead of having a cookie that's made for you, I'm giving you guys the ingredients, and you can bake your own cookies or bake your own look, however you want to call it. So go check those out. You guys can use the code here to get 30% off. Let us know in the comments, as we are a community of automotive content creators, what tools you love to use down in the comments below. If I missed one, let me know if you learned a new tool in this video, but I ultimately really appreciate your guys' time, and I hope that you did learn something. Make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy automotive content, and you might like that video there. But I hope that I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.